Hi boys and girls, welcome back to chapters 7 and 8 of Planes, Fire, and Rescue. But guys, let's remember what happened in chapter 6. Dusty was talking to Mayday about how to get a second firefighter into Prop Wash so that they could stay in open airport. And then Dusty volunteered to go get certified to be a firefighter. Okay, so let's get on to chapter 7. The next morning, Dusty was ready to go. He was going to fly to Piston Peak Air Attack Base and meet up with Mayday's old friend, Blade Ranger. Blade was the chief of the fire and rescue, and he was going to train and certify Dusty to be a firefighter. After the morning rush, during which a total of 5 cow tractors crossed the road, Chug gave it the all clear. Mayday, Dottie, Chug, Sparky, and Skipper surrounded Dusty, ready to send him on his way. "Good luck, Dusty," shouted Mayday. "Take it easy out there," added Dottie. "You can do it, Dusty," cheered Skipper. "Woohoo! Good luck," said Sparky. Dusty smiled gratefully at his friends and then took off, soaring into the sky. He climbed toward the clouds and flew over miles and miles of golden cornfields. He felt great, but as soon as his torque gauge rose into the yellow zone, his smile faded. He backed off the power and continued to cruise at an average speed. Dusty enjoyed the long flight to Piston Peak. He passed over an impressively rugged badlands with the striking rust-colored mountains. He flew over quaint towns and wide-open farmlands. He knew he was getting close when he caught the fresh scent of pine needles drifting up into the air. Finally, he saw a breathtaking forest stretched out below him. Towering pines, redwoods, and sequoias covered huge mountains. A railway bridge wound its way around the forest. The Piston Peak Railway locomotive came into view, happily puffing and chugging along along the track. He blew his whistle when he saw Dusty. Dusty returned the friendly gesture with a dip of his wing. The park was absolutely magnificent. Dusty was sure it was one of the most beautiful places on Earth. He tilted slightly as he zoomed through a hole in the trunk of one majestic sequoia. When he flew over the main gate, on which the sign read, Piston Peak National Park, he could see cars and RVs pouring through the entrance. Soon he could see the awe-inspiring V6 Valley, and, in the distance, the magnificent Piston Peak itself. This place was amazing. The massive rustic Fusil Lodge was nestled in the V6 Valley. The hotel was 5 stories high and had a wide veranda. Planes touched down on the small airstrip and helicopters land on the balconies. Dusty smiled as he took in the scene. Gasket Geyser sent out a spray of water to the front of the lodge as he flew by. A shiny luxury SUV greeted guests as a concierge forklift hovered by his side. Dusty flew past Piston Peak, spotting deer tractors grazing in the grass below. Finally, the air attack base came into view. There was a small, modest airstrip with a corrugated steel hangars. Dusty landed and rolled to a stop. The base was oddly quiet, except for a faint, tiny sound of a song playing off an old PA speaker. Dusty looked around. Was this really the air attack base? Patch, a female tug, was cleaning a spot off a window inside the control tower. Windlifter, a massive, heavy-lifting helicopter, was grunting as he curled dozens of logs with his hoist. Dipper, a super scooper plane, was relaxing, using a corrugated steel reflector to sun herself. Maru, a forklift mechanic, dropped a tool on his tire and jumped up and down in pain. Cabby, a cargo plane, was listening to a ham radio. These are the firefighters? Dusty thought. Vroom! Suddenly, Drip, a wild-natured ATV with a grabber claw, roared off the top of the muddy ridge and flew right over Dusty, nearly colliding with him. Dusty ducked and Drip landed on the other side of the runway. Another ATV, Dynamite, hurried over, followed by Blackout. Two other ATVs, Avalanche, a mini dozer, and Pinecone appeared at the top of the ridge. Drip, what the heck's the matter with you? You nearly took off the guy's canopy, Dynamite said. But Blackout said it was okay to go, Drip said. I did? Blackout asked. He did? Dynamite asked. Yeah, he was like, it's okay to go, dude. Dusty spoke up. Oh, I'm sorry. I know you're busy, but I'm looking for the Piston Peak Air Attack Base. You are there, said Drip. They told Dusty that they heard a seat was coming for training. The gang introduced themselves to Dusty, and Dusty introduced himself. When Dipper heard Dusty Crabhopper, her eyes popped wide open and she raced over to meet him. Shut the hangar door. I'm your biggest fan. I've seen every single one of your races on RSN. Wow, you're smaller than I thought, but that's okay. Dipper was excited. She seemed very interested in Dusty, and she eagerly asked what the world-famous race star was doing in Piston Peak. Dusty explained that he was between races, and he was getting certified to help out some friends back home. Dipper thought it was really sweet. She giggled nervously when she introduced herself and made it very clear she was a Miss and not a Mrs. She had a big crush on Dusty. When Dusty asked for Blade Ranger, the crew told him that he was out looking for spot fires. Windlifter the helicopter looked up in the sky as the wind blew and spoke softly and strangely. The one the Lakota call Hayuk beats his drums with the wind and makes thunder. With thunder comes lightning, and with lightning comes fire. Okay, said Dusty, wondering what the heck Windlifter was talking about. Windlifter, stop scaring our guest. I don't hear any drums, Dipper said lightly. Everyone was quiet as Windlifter slowly turned the tower speakers, seeming almost hypnotized. Then a blaring siren cut through the silence, and Patch's voice came over the PA. All aircraft, we have report of a wildfire. Chapter 8. Everyone quickly snapped into action, and the ragtag crew became a firefighting team before Dusty's eyes. Come on, boys, let's load up, Maru shouted as he sped out of his hangar. Patch, drop the needle. Heavy metal music blasted out of the little speaker as the team prepared to take on the fire. It's an actual fire? Dusty asked. Oh yeah, said Dripper. Happens all the time. You guys only hear about the big ones. Dusty watched, bewildered by the swirl of activity as the crew prepared to go out. The smoke jumpers clicked on their parachute packs on the side of a hangar and rolled out. Cabby fired up his engine and lowered his enormous ramp, allowing the smoke jumpers to back in. They piled into the plane. Maru hooked a hose to Dipper and lowered and threw a lever as she filled up with water. Windlifter attached his retardant tank, and the firefighters taxied out to the runway and took off. Dusty followed excitedly. I gotta see this. Clouds of smoke drifted up from beyond the ridge. Once they got past the ridge, they could see the fire burning in the valley below. Dusty looked down in shock and amazement. Suddenly, vroom! A fire and rescue helicopter emerged from the column of smoke. He climbed into the air and dove back down as he turned and flipped to release his red retardant on the raging fire below. Whoa, Dusty said beyond impressed. He knew right away this awesome firefighter had to be Blade. All right, mud groppers, watch your altitude. Too low and you'll spread the embers, Blade commanded. Blade told the crew what to do and everyone obeyed. He told Dipper where to drop and she went off, diving and releasing her retardant on the edge of the fire. On Blade's command, Windlifter laid retardant on the other side of the fire. Next, Blade ordered Cabby to open his ramp and get the jumpers on the ground. Then Cabby's back ramp opened, the jumpers rolled forward and peered out the back of the plane. "Looks good, Cabby," Dynamite said. Bzzz. The smoke jumpers grinned. The loud buzzing noise was accompanied by a green light. "Let's ride the silk elevator, boys," Drop said. "I will never understand why you gravel crunchers want to jump out of a perfectly good airplane," said Cabby. "We're not! We're jumping out at you!" Dynamite yelled as he hooted and hollered, jumping off the ramp. The smoke jumpers twirled through the air like acrobats, flipping and spinning around before finally deploying their bright yellow parachutes. The parachutes puffed open and caught the wind, allowing the jumpers to gracefully drift to the ground and land about 100 yards from the fire. Once down, Dynamite made sure everyone had landed and then radioed Cabby, "Everyone's down, we're good." Cabby soared off. "Be careful out there." Blade told Dynamite to use the creek bed as a barrier to create a fire break. The smoke jumpers immediately went to work. Everyone had a specific job to do, and they knew exactly how to do it. Blackout sawed trees, Avalanche pushed debris, Drip lifted a log, and Pinecone raked up brush. They worked together seamlessly, each one performing their task without missing a beat. Blade spotted several deer tractors scurrying away from the fire as the trees fell around them. A burned pine tree cracked and began to fall toward the unsuspecting deer. Blade pitched sideways, opened up his side door, and activated a hoist. Zip! The hoist snatched up the deer just as a burning tree smashed to the ground. Blade set the wide-eyed, grateful deer safely on a rocky ledge. "Awesome," Dusty said, thrilled. When Blade noticed Dusty, he was not happy. "Who the... Get out of this airspace!" he yelled. Dusty wasn't paying attention and didn't realize how low he was flying. He was very close to the fire. "Oh, sorry, I didn't mean to," Dusty stammered. Just then, Dipper swooped in. She didn't see Dusty and dropped a load of retardant right on top of him. Sploosh! The red retardant covered him from nose to tail. "Oh! Uh-oh," Dipper said. Dusty, red-faced with retardant, sputtered and wobbled. Blade glared at him. Okay, boys and girls, that's our 2 chapters for this week. We'll see you again next week for another 2 chapters.